All right. This is Doug White from Security Weekly. I'm on the edge of the camera, so it's just sort of like, over here, but that's okay. I'm at the Microsoft Ignite Festival, and I'm getting the honor to talk to Aabha Thipsay and Mike Stephens, who are program managers for Microsoft Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Having fun other than, I know you were running because you had to run.
Yeah, it's a big center, right? So
it's very big. It's like 5 blimp hangars in one. So
yeah, I think Boeing could build an aircraft here.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think you could pull like an aircraft carrier in here and just like work on it for a while.
But no, it's been a great. The show's been great. The crowd has been awesome. And,
yeah, there's a lot of people. We've had great interviews and a lot of fun walking around on the floor and all that kind of stuff. We had never been here before, so this was like Security Weekly's first time that we ever got to visit Microsoft Ignite. So that was like, we got invited to come. Yeah, and they even let us in. So it was like after they did the reviews and all that kind of stuff. So what I want to talk to you guys about, among other things, I got some general questions about identity management that I think some of our viewers would be interested in, but I really would like if maybe you guys could take a few minutes and explain to us what Microsoft Hello actually is, because you're like the architects are you the architects or designers, supporters, managers, whatever?
Program managers for Windows Hello.
Well, you know what it is, right?
I can fake it really good. No, yeah, we can help.
Well, so we're all faking it. So I thought maybe you guys could take a little while and talk to us a little bit about what Hello and FIDO and all this stuff is, because I have a lot of viewers. My show is for like a lot of entry-level people. We have very advanced people that watch some of this content as well. But I know a lot of people will probably be asking, what is Microsoft Hello? We've heard about it a lot. So I thought you would be the people to tell me what it is.
Yeah, so Windows Hello in a nutshell is it's the alternative to a password, right? Microsoft announced probably 3 years ago or so that we said, hey, we're going to start this passwordless journey. And that passwordless journey begins with needing an alternative to a password, right? You can't test, you can't do anything unless you can do that. So the idea there is that, okay, let's figure out what to do. And how can we make it where the user experience was just as easy as signing in with a password, but admins would love it because it's secure.
Okay.
And so we came up with the idea of Windows Hello for Business, and that's what we've been pitching and producing and for the last 3 or 4 years now. And the enrollment's up. And the basic principle is we're taking away the symmetric key, which is a password. We call it a symmetric key because you have it and the server has it, right? And we're replacing that with asymmetric crypto. Okay. So you have a private key protected by the TPM. Azure has a copy of your public key. Okay. Sign in, the high-level sign-in is you use your private key to sign a nonce that Azure gives you. You send it to Azure. Azure then can verify it because they have your public key. And then at that point, you authenticate. And the basic principle of that is it's gesture-driven. So you as a user, you have a private key, but you can't access the private key until you provide a gesture, whether it be PIN or biometrics.
What kind of gestures do I have to make? I mean, can I just make up my own gestures?
Well, the one that I love the most is using your face to log in. Okay. So I just set up Windows Hello once. I enroll my face into it, and that's how I log into my machine every day. So I just walk up to the PC, and that's how I log in.
Okay. Well, yeah, we have seen other, things like, I like that myself. Can you use other gestures, though? Do you not have to use your face, or are there other biometrics?
No, you can use biometric, fingerprint, or the most common modality that we try to remind people of is PIN. A lot of enterprises, they have a hardware refresh cycle and so forth like that, and they say, oh, well, I can't do Windows Hello, and that's not really the case. No, you can't do the biometric side and get the full benefit of Windows Hello and that great user experience, but you can still get off of passwords and convert to using a PIN. That PIN still acts as a gesture to access the private key.
And is there another factor to it? Is there like a dongle or a piece of hardware or something that you put with it?
So Windows Hello is two-factor in this way. It's a private key that you have protected by a TPM. Okay. This is something you have. There's something you know is your PIN. Right. Or there's something that's a part of you is your bio. Right. So it's two-factor straight in. When you sign in with Windows Hello and authenticate to Azure, you're doing a two-factor auth.
That makes sense. That makes sense to me. What's FIDO? So I heard the other one is FIDO and FIDO 2. We see a lot. Maybe you want to tell me what
that's my area of expertise.
Cool.
So what Mike talked about Windows Hello is when you enroll on that device once, your private key or your credential is really on that device. Right. But in case where you move from one machine to the other, let's say you have doctors, for example, they go from one room to the other, and they need to log in quickly and securely to all of these different machines. Now you can't really ask them to enroll on each and every device that they go to, and that's where Windows Hello security keys or FIDO 2 keys is where they come into play. Where now instead of enrolling that credential on my device, I am enrolling that credential on a security key. Actually, I have a few with me if you want to see. But this is one which is manufactured by FIDO.
It's like a dongle.
Yeah, and it has a fingerprint sensor on it.
Oh, is it a fingerprint reader?
It is.
Wow,
yeah, so right here.
And that's a YubiKey, yeah.
And that's a YubiKey, and it is USB as well as NFC, so I can basically do a tap and log in with this.
That's cool.
So what happens is using these keys, now I create that credential on this key. So what happens now is I can now walk up to any machine using this key, just put in my fingerprint and sign in. So I never have to type in my username or my password. And yeah, it's an open standard. So you just see two form factors here, but tomorrow you could have your wearable or your watch or even your phone being a FIDO device. And that's how you log into your machine going forward.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I was going to bring up with you guys was like, all this seems like identity management starts moving toward what I call sort of the seamless cloud. Because we all want that. We want to be able to take this and walk from here, or even just leave this and get up and go sit down over there, and they just have some scattered around, and you just pick one up, and it knows who you are. And it's, I want my car. My car knows I've got a key fob, and I know it's not that secure, but so far it hasn't been stolen. But my car knows when I walk up, and the lights come on, and but I mean, and the next step in that obviously is going to be some kind of two-factor identity management for your car, and you're going to walk up and it's going to say, "Hey, Doug, how are you?" So, I mean, do you think that this is the first step or the last step or some intermediate step in moving toward that just purely seamless world?
I think it's definitely a first step, right? Because Windows Hello as well as security keys, it is giving you that two-factor, multi-factor login. But it's just about time and the industry adopts it, and we find more and more use cases, and it gets widely adopted in other areas as well.
Right. I mean, and I also think that IoT starts to become kind of critical with this too, because I think we're going to eventually, this is my crystal ball part, I think that we want IoT devices to start knowing who we are as well. And I got some other questions. We will talk a little bit about for the privacy piece of this in a minute, but I mean, just the pure scientist in me, which is this big chunk of me, not my, I would love to have like a little cloud of drones that just follow me around. And they have different purposes or whatever, and they, I say, oh, I need Mike and Abe, and they're not here. Where are they? And my drones go flying off over the crowd and looking for you, and they say, oh, they're coming, they're down here, or there's a threat, and I'm gonna go sting that threat and get rid of it. But I mean, even just simple stuff like my front door or my thermostat, I would like to be able to just recognize me in that seamless kind of way. So, I mean, I think you guys are right on like you said, I think it's in the first steps of how do we get to that place where we're recognizing without even introducing the problems.
Yeah.
Of that. I mean, we'll talk about those problems in a minute, but I think right now, I mean, do you guys kind of agree with that? I mean, is that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely we're on the forefront of the identity perspective, and then just trying to find new ways. In the and what you're talking about is more consumerish when we get in those consumer scenarios. But when we look at the enterprise, consumer, I believe, in my personal opinion, is consumer's a little bit easier because you have you're not held to the same standard as a Fortune 500 company.
And you don't have to do it.
Right.
I mean, consumer can say, I'm out. I'm just not doing this. I'm going to go live in the woods. I mean, that's fine.
And I think we can get way more creative with consumers, like consumers that want to have potentially, in just the free thinking here, where I have that ability to where the cloud knows who I am, and there's these sensors that I've authorized, and I walk up to stuff, and I go into the room, and it switches the TV to the channel that I listen to or whatever. I think consumers are free to make those decisions, whereas the enterprise is like, hey, that's cool. We like the tech, but hey, we got to worry about security.
But even in the enterprise, I think so. We have so many threats in our society right now, especially in the United States. We get trained constantly on, active shooter, all these kind of things, and there's this huge perceived threat, real threat, et cetera, whether it's on campus, it's at school, it's at the hospital, it's at work. And I think we are going to see people starting to sacrifice some of these other issues to the gods of security, because when I put my security hat on, then I'm just total tyranny, because I'm like I can fix this for you.
Yes.
You aren't gonna like it.
Yeah.
Because just right here, I can say, I'm gonna put a badge on everybody, and I'm gonna track your every movement. Oh wait, they're already doing that. But I mean, I can do that, and I can say, well, that badge can tase you. You're going to wear a wearable, and if you do something we don't like, I'm just setting up at the booth and go, that guy, he's out. Yeah. Stop him right now.
That might be fun.
Oh, I'm there.
I see a video.
If you need me, I'm there for that job.
There's a video game somewhere in there.
Yeah, I can see a live action video game. You can tase people out.
Yeah.
And people would play that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You have to there's all these challenges. Oh, yeah, people would go for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's very nasty, but it would really be fun.
I'm just thinking of the achievements you could get with it. So,
right, because you say if you do make it, you get this little badge.
Yep.
And then they'd be like, oh, my, yeah. But I mean, don't you think we'll do that? I mean, right now, when we have a shooting, it's easy to market an identity product, because if you could very seamlessly just have students walking through the front door of the school, and it's going student. Oh, problem. Gate comes down.
I think it's a matter of time when the public sector as a whole will converge with the security of what enterprises are thinking about now, and I think. I have 2 daughters, and I know, I would be totally for having things that are scanning them all the time and everything when they're at a university or something like that. So I think it's just a matter of once the education factor gets high enough that people are going to be willing to say, I don't need that much ease of use if it gives me X number of protection.
Right. And it was a cultural question I was asking some other people. I didn't actually have it for you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Or it's sort of it's a comment, but I think part of it is because we don't have it in our culture. We teach people English literature, so this is something I was talking about before. I was like, everybody goes to high school graduate, you study English, or whatever literature is appropriate. I mean, if you're in Germany, you probably study medieval German literature. But you study literature, but you don't study technology.
Yeah.
I mean, people take classes sometimes voluntarily. They learn to use technology, but they don't study technology. And I think security has slipped out. It's not in our culture yet, so we don't think like that.
Well, I think you're right. If you look at the whole Facebook thingamabob or whatever, right? Everybody thought that their data was private. What? My data's not private? I'm like, come on.
I mean, the outrage about that, I was like, really?
Really?
You didn't think these guys were selling everything you do.
The light bulb just went off. Okay, there's an opportunity for us, right?
I mean, I always thought they were. I was like, I would be. I was like people are voluntarily sharing their ideology with you. Yeah. Why wouldn't you track that and sell it? It's I know which people to sell crackers to, because they are always posting about crackers. So
and that's the fundamental basis of web advertising, right? How can I get the right ad in front of the right user?
And I know this is a little off the subject of identity management, but it really isn't. I like targeted ads. I mean, I would so much rather see an ad that's about a guitar or a computer or something I'm interested in than say an ad about sports, which I have no interest in at all. I mean, I don't want to see an ad about football. I could care less about it. It's meaningless to me, and I don't know anything about it. So it's just what? So if they put an ad about a guitar, they didn't waste their advertising dollars, and I didn't waste my time looking at it.
Yep.
Now, my wife would rather I didn't see ads about guitars.
Mine too. Yeah, Mine too. I'm cut off. Yeah.
But I do like that. And I do think that we are willing more and more, because just like you, I mean, my little drone idea, imagine you take that little drone idea, the drone swarm, and you put it around a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And say, send your kid to school with the ultimate protection.
Yeah.
Doug's drones,
Yeah.
Twice as violent as last year.
Yes.
Bullies beware. And I mean, if you had, really intelligent gadgets that were surrounding your kid, and I mean, we see all kinds of stuff people sacrifice, like I have Find My Friends. Mm-hmm. So my daughter is on there. And my daughter doesn't care if I look at where she is. She's I would have been aghast, and I'd probably never, if my parents had been looking what we were doing, and my daughter's like, well, what would I be doing that you wouldn't? I was like, oh, I don't know. So I think we're seeing cultural paradigm shift in some of that. So how good is Hello at doing this? I mean, I know that's a tough question for you because we're sitting here in the Microsoft building at the Microsoft conference with the Microsoft employees, and there's the Microsoft guy looking through the window. But but I mean, the truth is like, so I mean, it's going to be really important that this thing be good, right? I mean, it has to work.
Yeah, it has to work. Like I said, the goal is it has to be as easy as a password.
Yeah.
But secure. And, we just got out of a session about 3 hours ago or something, so we ran the numbers, so I actually still remember them. So last year at this time, we only had about 200 unique enterprises that had deployed Windows Hello.
Okay.
This, in 1 year, that was last year, we announced those numbers at Ignite 2017.
Okay.
This year, we have over 6,500.
Awesome.
And unique enterprises that have deployed Windows Hello.
People want this. I mean, even without regard for your particular product, people want this kind of solution.
Yeah, they want the goal of passwordless and killing passwords is ubiquitous across the industry.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants to get rid of it.
I've never been anyone who disagreed with your shirt.
Yeah.
So that's the theme that everybody's going. Now, they may have different ways to get there. And you know what? For me, I think Windows Hello is great, not just because I work on it, but I just the experience is second to none. But, use something other than a password.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is, but, passwords just need to go away.
I tell my clients all the time the very thing because it's like, one, I can make a really hard password, and that doesn't help. So I can say, it's got to be 25 characters. It's got to have alternating numbers, letters, and symbols from Unicode, and all that does is get them to write it on the wall, and then there's a whole list of passwords scratched out on the wall. I don't think that solves any of those problems. I don't think making them change their password every 3 days solves a problem. I mean, there's just no good way to force any kind of reasonable password hygiene on human beings. They're just not going to go for it.
No, and I'm someone who absolutely hates password, like the ridiculous complexity requirements. Hey, you need a special character. Oh, throw in a capital letter. It just gets worse.
And then I'm always trying to use different passwords on every site.
And then you forget them.
Right. And I mean, I'm constantly having to reset my password. And it's almost like the point I've gotten to where it's just like, okay, I'm just going to put random numbers in every time. And every time I log into the site, I'll just hit reset my password and do it with two-factor, which actually is what I kind of do on some sites because it's just, why not? I just throw a random just monster password in there. Every time I need to use that site, I just reset it and I do a new password every time because that works better than me trying to remember something ridiculous that I can't use again and again and again and again. And when you get into schema, because I go to companies and they're like recommending schema to people, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. When they're like, yeah, take your favorite pet's name and add that to your daughter's birthday, and I'm like, people can look at this and figure, and then and it's just anything that's like, it almost just has to be like total random, like neutrinos striking the detector or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost just like point at 4 different words in a dictionary and use that.
And there's just no good way to deal with it. I mean, there are like one-time pad type problems, but even that only holds up one time.
Yep.
And the next time you repeat it, okay, the risk just went way up, and now and I used it, and so that's a big issue. What about phishing? And it's okay if you say, yeah, forget it. This doesn't really solve that problem. But I mean, this is the other question I get all the time about identity management. Is any of this going to help us with phishing? Because I get so many calls.
So for Windows Hello itself, it drastically reduces phishing because phishing attacks still by and large are please type your password somewhere.
Right.
With Windows Hello, the PIN that you enter, your biometrics, is all local to the device. So even if you were to get my PIN, you got to be me on my machine here. And now that gets into the whole, now you need to have that defense in depth, have good anti-malware and all that stuff. But the idea of phishing me when all I do is sign in with my biometrics, it's fundamentally like reduced. And then when you get FIDO in the way, let her tell you about that.
Yeah. So with FIDO, really, there is no password, right?
Right.
It's completely based on cryptography. So I have my private key on there. There's nothing on the server really to steal from me. So all you can get by hacking a server is basically public keys, which are worthless to an attacker.
Right. I mean,
so really, with the security keys, I'm never using a password.
That. I mean, that's the conceptual idea we've been looking for, or that everybody has advocated conceptually for a long time. Well, let's talk a little bit about non-repudiation. I had to take a deep breath before I said that word. One of the issues in phishing to me is the non-repudiation issue. It's how do I validate you? rather than me. So I contact you about an interview, and you say, did that really come from Doug, or was that a setup to get me out of my office for 15 minutes? And or was it a setup to get me to click a link or whatever? And so do you think that we can use these kind of tools to address this sort of non-repudiation problem? So now I'm actually asking about digital signature.
So for Windows Hello, you definitely can, because and this is more of the corporate environment or the enterprise environment, because we have two different ways to deploy Windows Hello, but we have a variety. But one of them is using a certificate trust. So you still have the traditional certificate.
Right.
It uses a smart card auth OID, and then it has a client auth OID. So, and then we just announced today where we've had some third-party APIs that allow third parties to push other search down in there. So, for example, we partnered with Interseed, which is an identity management company out of the UK, and they now put into my ID to where they can push SMIME certs to your Windows Hello container. So now when you go into wanting to enter and sign, you can use your biometric to do that. And the great thing about it is because SMIME has kind of fundamentally shifted over the years, right? Before it was like I read email on one device, so I could directly enroll a hardware cert there and good. But now we read email everywhere. So now it's like, how does that cert follow me to all my devices, right? And so that's the great thing about that feature by us providing those APIs to third party. When you sign in, they can orchestrate, oh, you've got 4 SMIME certs, 1 active, 3 are the old ones for encryption. So not only can you do the non-repudiation, but you can also do secure email.
And you could do that with FIDO too, right? So you could just do classic digital signature that uses your private key to authenticate to the public key?
Yeah, so that's the same concept that's used in security keys. It doesn't work on certificates, though. It's a purely key trust-based model. But it's the same way, right? When you are actually creating your credential on this device, it depends on the relying party. Like right now, we have the Azure Active Directory, who's creating or requesting creating of that credential on that device. So it makes sure, like whenever it is passing that assertion back, saying that yes, I authenticate who you are, it's validating that it's coming from the right source before generating
because I think that's the thing that solves the phishing problem is non-repudiation. That's what I keep, because I keep getting asked, like, and they send me these like horrible like training things, you know, where it's like scenario. Like, you know, I am a prince of Nigeria, and I would like your email address. You know, click yes or no. You know, and it's like, I'm like, they say, will this help? I mean, I really got something almost that bad the other day, and they're like, we paid almost $50,000 for this training, and it's like, it won't help.
Yep.
And I mean, you'll never stop cons ultimately, because people can always give everything up. But I do think that non-repudiation through something like this, it's seamless, means that when that comes in with a little green check mark on it that says that really did come from Doug, I can get used to just going, oh yeah, that email's from Doug.
Yeah,
or
it's just
not.
introducing another level of trust, but at the identity level.
Right. And speaking of trust, so one of the huge threats to enterprise, and it's again about, it's almost not personal identity, but it's just gestalt identity, is we trust a lot of things. And as we use increasingly complex products like Microsoft products, and we have all these objects and all these things that we start to lose track of, a lot of threats I see come in from legacy. So I've got a vendor, and the vendor sells me towels. You know, they provide the paper towels for this building. And I need to let them into my systems so that my automatic system can order, and they can reply that the order's on the way, or they can IoT.
Yep.
The paper towel dispenser now detects when it's so low, and they send a new supply. That's a huge threat. And when they're using a legacy system, they're running Windows 98. You know, I'm not no problem with Windows 98. It was a good product. It's just a little bit dated now, but they're still running that, and they're using 4-digit pins that are shared across 50 truck drivers who deliver things, because they all use the same pin, because it's just easier that way to tell them, yeah, just type in 1111 when you get to the gate, and use that as your login, and use that as your ID, and because I've seen that tons of time. Do you think that this stuff, that Hello and FIDO and all these things start to help with those kind of things? Can we build these trust with other, you said you could use other things, not just your face. Maybe we could find a way to use other things to do this? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think the real starter is getting people educated and embrace this technology. It's more of a factor of being used to, or, you know, having been a replacement of password that is very convenient for and very natural. Like you said, people reuse their pins. Why?
Right.
Because it's just easy to do.
Exactly.
What if we make the authentication so easy that you don't think of any other way of logging in? That's just how you do it. So it's just about the ecosystem embracing this technology and taking it forward.
But they do have to get off of Windows 98. We can't fix
Good luck
that.
with that.
We can't fix that.
No, I know you can't fix that, but
There's
good
a
luck
hot
with
fix
it.
for that. It's called Windows 10.
Yeah, when I get those clients and they're like, what should we do? And I give them, I'm like, well, okay, first of all, we need to upgrade all your system. Like, yeah, we have a budget of $60 for this whole project. And we'll, in our next 5 to 10 year period, we'll try to add another 60 to that. So what do you think? Could we go to Windows 99? I've actually had somebody ask me that. They were like, is there like a 99 we could go to? And it's like, yeah, I'll look into that for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was actually a Windows 99 or not. You'd think I was paying these guys to segue me, but you brought this up. So that leads to privacy. I love the idea of seamless stuff. I don't really have a problem with it, and the scientist in me loves it. The security hat says all the way. But then there's this other part that says, ooh, I read all those like nasty books back in the 80s, and that starts to get kind of scary, and I see stuff like in China they have this like good citizenship score that's being done with facial recognition, and so you're walking down the street and it says, oh, that Doug's not a good guy, can't get on the train, can't go in the restaurant or whatever. What do you think? I mean, how do we address that particular issue? Because this is a thing that's very easy to misuse at the same time. Since you built a nice API for me to use, why not use it? I put some cameras up. I can start spotting people in the crowd I don't like or whatever.
So one of the things that we did when we built those APIs is that while the certificate stuff is just you creating normal certificates and dumping them down, we created APIs that allow these third parties to kind of manage Windows Hello, but we were very careful not to give up like certain pieces of critical information. Like those APIs do not allow the third party to have access to the keys that we make. Okay. So all they really can do is they can invoke our provisioning flows, and then we take over and we do all of the key provisioning, all the key registration. They don't get to see any of that, and that was done purposefully because we believe that they don't need to have access to the key. This is like seamless is part about federated identity. And why do you need access to the key? Just use Azure as your identity, federate your apps, you get single sign-on all the way through. You don't need the key. Why do you need the key? And when they ask for that, I simply say, why do you need the key? And they're like, well, we want to do, I'm like, no, federate with Azure. If it's an on-prem app, use integrated Windows. You don't need access to those keys.
They're going to want that key.
Yeah, but there's no need for it. And
I'm going to get asked that because when I do a lot of government stuff, and I'm going to get asked that. They're going to be like,
I've got asked that too, and they didn't like the answer, but that's what we said.
No, they won't like it.
No,
be like, we need to open this up because we have to,
No, we said that's the way the keys are, and that's the way it is. So the privacy thing, though, is like one of the big topics that's coming up, and it's a really sensitive topic, is that wouldn't it be great if you walked in any computer in your house and it just saw you, can recognize you? But when you start looking at that, it's like, okay, so now that's cloud-stored biometric templates and cloud matching. And I think that is brilliant, but I don't know any lawyer who would ever sign off on that, right? Like when we go to the enterprises, the techies are going, we want to just be able to go walk up to the machine in the conference room and it sees us. And I'm like, I do too. And then that's when the lawyers come in and go, a centralized database of biometric data. Let's think on that for a little bit. And
but we kind of have that anyway.
Well, we have pictures.
We have badging systems.
Yeah, but the badging systems actually just have a picture. They're not really using biometric data.
Oh, I've had them use biometric data.
Okay, well. Okay.
I had one that had fingerprints. I had one that had retina prints. I've got one I use at the airport called Clear that uses retinal and fingerprints that are centrally stored biometrics. So
right, and then most of these are it's up to each individual enterprise, right?
Right.
But those are, when you're talking about the privacy concerns, that's one of the big things we have.
Agree.
Like if you look at a company like Microsoft and storing biometrics in the cloud, that's got to be like a big concern. Like, what are you going to do? How do you protect that? All the same things about identity come back to the privacy part.
And all it takes is a change. I mean, you're saying what you're saying right now, and I completely agree with you. But give it 6 months, something happens. And the government, says we must do this because we have no choice in order to thwart X or Y or Z. We must do this now, and then it's out there. And once the genie's out of the bottle, as they say, suddenly I can access this because the government says yes, we're going to access it. Have a nice day. And I mean, I guess you can refuse, but that can get interesting at times as well. I mean, well, there's a show called Black Mirror, which is really popular in the tech community, and one of the episodes is called Nosedive, which is about not so nefarious a thing. It's just this almost innocuous idea of being popular. And if you don't keep up with this and your score starts falling, and because everything now is based on facial recognition and your identity. That seamless identity that I like so much starts to get haunting, and they start saying, well, maybe we're not going to let you do this because you shouldn't have attended the Microsoft conference, or whatever they got in your background that they can pull out of there, I think. So my last question, and then I'll let you alone. I know you had a lot of stuff to do. Where do you see this going? I mean, where are we? And I don't know. I know the answer, the best answer to this question, is I'll answer for you, is you can't tell not where you thought, but so just in the incremental steps. I mean, you don't have to think about the distant future, but just where does it go next? I mean, you've solved this problem. What's the next one?
Well, we haven't solved it.
Well,
we're on the way. So we have a 4-step process of passwordless. Okay. Windows Hello is step 1.
Okay.
So you've got a bunch of steps, right? So the first thing in passwordless is you need an alternative. That's Windows Hello, or that's Windows Hello security keys.
Okay.
Then after that, then you have, then it's the hard part, is the two of those can exist simultaneously, and they will be, because you have apps that prompt for passwords, and that's, you have to go, again, I've made this, you have to go to the org chart, across and down, find out how everybody uses their device.
Right.
The execs use it different than the lower management, and if you look at just one group like accounting, there's probably 6 different work personas in accounting.
Yeah.
You have to figure out, because as the IT guys, we'd like to say we know how everybody uses their PCs, but the reality is we don't.
And the day you figure it out, they change it.
Yes.
Yeah,
and so you have to be able to go through and develop what I call work personas, and be able to say, okay, this is the accounts payable work persona. And you have to go through all that, and then you start looking at what are the ones that we can actually achieve passwordless, because passwordless is a long journey. It's not a weekend project.
No.
So the idea is to show ROI while you continue that journey. So I'm like looking at people who don't have a lot of credentials, who don't use a lot of apps, and go after those low-hanging fruits first, right? And show that it's not just science fiction. Like, we can achieve passwordless, and it's a repeatable process once you start doing a couple departments at a time. So we have a lot of work to do just in passwordless alone. We have a lot of work in simplifying Windows Hello. It's still a distributed system now, has a lot of on-prem stuff. We're looking to lift and shift that stuff. And then we're trying to incorporate a lot of Windows Hello security key stuff in it, like on-prem SSO.
On-prem SSO, just being able to, bridge those gaps in all of the scenarios in a real enterprise. Like just people going to the same machine, people going to different machines. There's a lot of things that people do which we need to make sure we incorporate in our passwordless strategy, and we make those scenarios available. So I think it's a long journey ahead. We are just getting started.
And you didn't even mention the fact that my lab still got Windows 98 machines in it. We didn't tell you about that during the engineering session.
Windows 10.
It's like, oh yeah, we need these too. Mike Stephens, Aabha Thipsay, thank you so much. All of you, thank you for joining us. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. Have fun at Ignite, and thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.